Oh yeah, if you don't have a parachute, you die. Because you're going like 150 miles an hour. Because like the whole time the plane's kind of doing this because they want to go as slow as possible. Because if they're going full speed and you jump out, you'll probably hit the tail.
Oh.
Right?
Wow.
And you'll take the tail out, and then everyone dies.
I never knew that. Yeah, the consequences of that are death. There's no coming back from that type of
or
thing.
a very serious slam into the ground.
Concussion. And you've had some of those. We talked about that.
Like 25, 27.
Wow. You had a lot of fractured bones, my man. You mentioned to me fractured clavicle, all your toes and your tibia, your fibula. I mean, you've done it all, man.
So it's like all my big injuries have lasted longer because every single time the doctors have misdiagnosed me. Every single time.
There's still a big problem with opioid use disorder. Those patients didn't go away. They still have the problem.
Once you become stagnant, you die.
Yeah.
I had like these 3 concussions in 1 week.
No. That's dangerous, bro.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
Lands straight on his collarbone, breaks his collarbone. And then I have to drive him to the hospital very concussed.
Oh.
And I think that's like the key to life.
So true.
Is like, don't be afraid to fail.
So true.
And
welcome to Bending Over Backwards with James Adkins. I'm your host, Dr. James Adkins, where each week we take a deep dive into what it takes to break through barriers and change the game, whether that's in medicine, business, or life. Today, I am visiting with Clayton Lindley, who is an extreme sports enthusiast, was a professional scooter rider. He now is behind the camera, and he owns a company called Ragtown Media, where they produce for pretty much everything. And he's got some crazy, crazy stories that I want to get into. Thanks for coming back, man. Appreciate you.
I know. It's good to be back.
Thank you, sir.
Your intro is solid now, by the way.
Man. Well, you helped me with that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, interesting enough, a couple people saw this previous podcast we had. You were one of my first. Thank you. And one of my friends goes, "Wow. How did you get that dude on your podcast? And by the way, that guy's nuts. And by the way, how do you not know who Travis Pastrana is?" So
Pastrana. Pastrami.
Okay. Yeah. And then also a request to delve in a little bit deeper, because you've had a lot of injuries, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're an extreme sports guy, and we kind of glossed over those a little bit. But to get into that correlates a lot with my life, with my career in spine and pain medicine, and how people rehabilitate from that. You know, you've had multiple concussions. And I know now you've modified your lifestyle and even your career, because now you're behind the camera more. I know you're still doing extreme sports, but you're doing ones that don't. If you crash your extreme sports that you're doing today, it just kills you. Doesn't give you a concussion like your previous.
It could give you a concussion, just a very severe concussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So walk us through a little bit of what you got going on now, because I with your production company.
So there's a lot that's been happening, and I feel like over the last, because I really dove back into going full-time to film like 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I've been trying to figure out like the thing that really, like what I really enjoy filming and producing and what I don't like. So I've learned quickly of like, like all the signs to look for, the industries I don't want to be in. One of those is real estate. And,
I get that. Boring.
But I'm learning that like I'm way better at on the go, on the fly stuff, because I've basically trained for it my entire life. Like growing up with my dad being a director and then doing 10-year career in action sports, and then plus all the other sports I did. Sure. It's basically like trained me to become like the kind of action
production. Yeah. Filmmaker.
Yeah. So
you're perfectly geared for that.
So in January, every year, well, the last 2 years, I shouldn't say every year, but the last 2 years, I've done this thing called Guys Trip, and it's like a thing with Sandcraft and Polaris and a couple other like big local off-road companies. And, you know, like I'm hanging out of a helicopter, chasing cars, and then they let me like jump out of the helicopter, and then there was like a FPV drone following me, and then I like landed into the campsite in Glamis. Oh, man. And so that was the moment where I was kind of like, you know what,
This is cool.
this
So what's
is
an
what I want to
FT?
do.
What is that? What is
So
it?
FPV,
FPV,
is
okay.
a first person viewer.
Okay.
So basically, it's these really fast drones that you can't pitch the camera at all. You fly it. So anytime you see like a helicopter or an airplane or something and like someone's like flying around them really close, that's those drones. So that
Okay.
guy was following me in my parachute, and I was like, "Hey, bud, don't hit me."
Wow.
Which if it hit, it'd probably just like tangle it up and then it would fall. But you know,
Yeah.
if you break some lines and I'm really low, I don't have enough time to get rid of my reserve.
That
But
would be a problem.
this guy's top notch. So
Okay. Okay. But you've jumped. I mean, that's not challenging for you jumping out of a plane. You've been.
skydiving is really safe.
Yeah, I was going to say you
So-
jump off cliffs.
Yeah.
You hike up mountains and jump off cliffs.
Right.
That's base jumping. That's a winging. That's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's when the
parachute
party
even.
starts.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. So the heart rate gets going.
Oh, right. And also, like, once I started, like, when I used to skydive, and after I got like a couple hundred skydives and I started base jumping, now skydiving is like
Boring.
weirdly not exhilarating at all.
You don't get anything out of it.
Unless I'm flying a wingsuit, then a wingsuit's scary. Because
So you skydive and then end up being in the wingsuit,
no, you jump out of the plane in a wingsuit.
but you're not on a parachute, are you? When you jump out?
You deploy your parachute.
Oh,
at
you
the
do.
end.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. If you don't have a parachute, you die because you're going like 150 miles an hour.
Okay. So help me visualize this. So you got a parachute, you jump out of the plane, that slows you down. Then you become then you start winging. Is that
So no, basically, so since the plane is flying like right at stall, so the skydive airplanes, whenever they drop you off, they have this light that comes on, and when it turns green, the pilot is basically making it so, because like the whole time the plane's kind of doing this because they want to go slow as possible. Because if they're going full speed and you jump out, you'll probably hit the tail.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
And you'll take the tail out, and then everyone dies.
I never knew that. All the
Yeah.
action films I've seen, never knew that.
Yeah, so they're always flying really, really slow.
Okay.
Unless you're jumping out of the bottom
Okay.
of it, then they can fly full speed and you just get ripped right out of the plane. But you're going about 80 miles an hour. So when you jump out, you have to stay in because you have all this fabric. So you jump out and then you have to wait just a half second to clear. Because if you did this right out of the plane, you would hit the tail and it would kill you. So that's when it
Things to remember.
So typically I like normally roll out, that just helps with like my air awareness and control of the suit. But it inflates pretty much immediately right when you open because it's all ventilated and it basically turns into a big pool floaty.
Okay.
Is what it is. Like if you were just relaxing, it would just fly itself.
Okay.
But then you're like pulling all the corners of the suit out and then pushing your feet out to get just as much surface area as possible so you have more glide.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you start hauling ass.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the flight, you basically build momentum because it's all momentum based. And just like an airplane, you flare. So you actually fly up.
Okay.
And then right when you get to your apex, that's when you pull your parachute.
I had no idea.
So anytime there's base jumpers flying wingsuits at the end of their flight, when they're, terrain flying, basically they flare out right at the end to gain altitude. And then they pitch at the top of that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I never even thought about how they land.
Oh, those guys are crazy. Like because those guys will gain 500 feet of elevation flying their suit, and that's insane.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And then so they're pulling the chute pretty low to the ground. I mean, that's a pretty
Yes, like some
500 feet,
guys.
1,000 feet. I mean,
Actually, I'll show you a video after this.
okay.
It's my buddy Chase, and he flew in between some rocks and superstitions, and he pitched or he like flares up right after going in between the rocks, and then he was probably maybe 200 feet above. So if anything goes wrong,
You're toast.
hopefully not, but yeah, pretty
200
much.
feet. Yeah, the consequences of that are death. There's no coming back from that type of
or a
injury.
very serious slam into the ground.
Concussion.
Yeah,
And you've had some of those. We talked about that.
by like 25,
Wow.
27.
So you obviously have changed your career a bit. So like you're behind the camera now instead of some of the action sports you used to do. But you've also modified. I remember you talking to me about you're big into yoga and meditation. I think you talked about meditation. all things that we counsel patients that have had concussions, and we see patients with concussions frequently. We're not neurologists, but we see people with injuries, spine injuries. And what are some of your tools? I mean, obviously, like you said, yoga is one of them, and meditation. But do you have a routine you use that you've read about, that you've educated yourself about to try to, the concern about the sequelas to concussion, I guess is what I'm saying. Are there supplements you take? Is there any routine you have?
Really, because I have like a lot of mental fog.
Okay.
And I've learned that when I drink energy drinks, which are bad anyways, and seed oils, I get really like clouded.
Worse.
It gets really bad.
Okay.
And because it's like my brain has a hard time now after just those damages.
Doesn't
Sometimes
seem like it. You're pretty quick, but
well, I drank some coffee this morning.
Okay.
But also I've been on 75 hard, so I'm not drinking, and I'm not I have been drinking energy drinks, but I like recently stopped.
handy for Sella.
And ever since I stopped, I'm like less impulsive and I'm more clear as well. So those are kind of the dietary things I've found. And seed oils are just terrible because they're so
Bad
like
news.
ultra processed. And now when I go to restaurants, I just tell them I'm highly, highly allergic. And if I have any seed oils, I'll die. And they're like, okay, we'll make sure we use butter. And you're like,
Thank you.
you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Which actually tastes better anyways.
It does. And so no supplements specifically, because one of the things.
Lion's mane.
Pardon?
Lion's mane. Mushrooms.
Okay.
And then
Mushrooms.
I cook a lot with mushrooms now. So I do.
Foods with tyrosine are good for patients with concussions. There's some theories on
what
that.
is it?
An amino acid that's important in brain function. So like almonds, bananas, those are really high in tyrosine. That's an amino acid that's important for brain function. Some experts say that's a food you should consider. More nuts, maybe you want to consider.
Okay. Yeah, because I have like a lot of like hemp seeds and stuff like that, and it has a lot of benefits. But I feel
omega-3 fatty acids and
right.
flax seed oil or flax seeds
Yep.
are really good for omega-3s. Omega-3s are something you should be probably supplementing. I'm giving you all this unsolicited advice, but omega-3s are really good for brain function, right?
Yeah, because I always make like yogurt or because also I'm trying to go low carb. I basically have like been only eating meat.
Wow.
as
So you're on a
well.
carnivore diet.
Pretty more carnivore, like a little bit. It's basically like fruits and meat is all I've been eating. Like
Interesting.
because vegetables hurt my stomach. Like they've been making me more like bloated.
Which vegetables?
Just
Do you notice any specific one?
kale, spinach, broccoli's fine. Like carrots are fine. But like the really green stuff, a lot of them like kind of just make me feel like worn out.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so I never really eat salads or.
Some nutritionists say that you should only consume spinach. It's more some of the enzymes and the phytonutrients are really only assimilated in the gut when they're cooked a little bit. You think raw spinach is not really maybe not the best thing, and then kale irritates people. I'm curious about that. That's been a 30-year passion of mine is human nutrition, and the correlation between how it makes you think and how you feel. So some vegetables seem to bother you, and you're more on a fruit and animal protein diet lately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like steaks, tons of eggs, liver, honey, and then I'll have a little bit of milk with my coffee,
That's about
and then
it.
a bunch of fruit.
How long? You've been
How
doing
long
this
what?
you've been doing this for 75. You're on 75 hard. Is this part of the dietary
It's
changes
been
you
kind
made?
of off and on. I've had some cookies, but
Sure. He's intense, Andy Frisella. He's intense.
Yeah,
I've listened to some of his podcasts. Wow.
I know.
So I did 75 hard. I only made it 60 days. And
really?
and for me, it was, I need to do it again because it's great. Are you finished with the program? Or are you in the middle of it?
66. This 67th day.
Awesome, man.
It has not been hard
Not for you. Wow.
because I already do like a lot of. I'm already outside and doing stuff anyways.
Yeah. The exercise part wasn't hard for me. For me, it was I'm married to a European. It was a red wine at dinner. Not having, and I got through it. And then my mom died. And the first 3 or 4 days I was suffering mentally, and she had Alzheimer's. So it was actually a gift that she died. It's kind of interesting comment, but it really was a gift. But about a week later, when we had her funeral, and I'm around all my in-laws and you know, we're Irish Catholic family, so you can imagine everybody likes their alcohol.
Oh
So
my gosh, yeah.
I couldn't. I had like, you know, 4 glasses of wine. I could hardly walk because my tolerance was down. Yeah, that's a
Right.
lot of wine anyway.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you're on 75 hard. It's not been hard for you. Are you taking pictures of yourself and you're doing the whole thing?
I
You
just did it at
following-
the beginning, and I'm gonna do it at the end.
Okay, that's
But
cool.
all like a couple of my friends have been like, "Dude,
You're getting jacked.
you're looking good." I'm like, "I know."
What mental? You said you're less foggy with your thinking a little bit. You think
It's really the energy drinks and no seed oils.
you don't credit it to you did that under the guise of
Well,
75 hard.
and also no drinking too. I think
Yeah, no
helped a
alcohol.
lot.
That does help,
I still smoke weed, and then
but no alcohol. Yeah,
the occasional soda, a lot of kombucha. That's like
Kombucha.
been my alternative.
okay.
I freaking love kombucha. It's so good.
Kombucha,
Yeah.
all the fermented drinks. But my kids love them. They love them. But
They're
I'm
so
like,
good.
I know it's good for the gut. I'm all into gut health. I think you probably are learning more about your brain and where all your receptors are for a lot of neurotransmitters are in the gut. You probably read about that.
Yeah.
But the sugar too. The sugar, you know, reducing sugar is a big deal,
yeah.
isn't it? I notice when I don't have my glass of wine at dinner, I'm looking for sugar, and
You're
I'm
looking for some alternative.
something
Yeah.
something to feed my brain. So what
This
about
is another thing that's interesting.
Do tell.
So, so I've had like a Celsius kick for a while, and
Okay.
I'm trying to get off of it, but they're so good. But I've noticed that if
that's
I
an
have,
energy drink, isn't it?
oh yeah,
Okay.
it's like 200 milligrams. It's so bad. Which is also my thing too. Of like, if you're starting your morning off with 200 milligrams of caffeine
yeah.
and all this artificial sugar inside of it, and then all the other bullshit that's in it,
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot.
well, then I've noticed the rest of the day I crave something sweet all day.
Yeah,
And like fruit can't satisfy it. And
right.
it's only like a lot of sugar can satisfy
Yeah.
it. But every time I have coffee in the morning or like a cold brew or something, I don't crave sweets at all.
yeah. That has to do with the insulin reaction you get from consuming sugar. When you
that
when
makes
you
sense.
consume sugar and you don't have the adequate call it cosinoids or these hormones that control your blood sugar levels, when you consume sugar, you want more. That's why we're all fat. That's why in the 70s when the food industry took over our government and started saying that we needed, you guys weren't even born then, but the food pyramid, you've read about this probably,
Oh, yeah.
right? Reversing the food pyramid. I mean, it was, you know, you need all grains. You need 5 servings of grains a day, and you need all this fruit and
And cereal, don't forget cereal.
cereal,
It's
yeah, your
important.
Kellogg's cereal, and that just causes a massive insulin reaction. And when you've got to control your insulin molecule, to be able to control your diet. And so when you consume sugar, you're just going to eat sugar all day. You're right.
I saw this hilarious clip from South Park, and they're trying to they have like this emergency thing of like trying to figure out the food pyramid. And have you seen this?
No.
And so Cartman,
Of course.
he calls in and he's like, I have the solution. And they're like, what is it? And he's like, it's upside down. And
Oh.
and so
Like
they,
what I just said, upside down food pyramid. Yeah.
exactly. And so then they're like, they flip it upside down and they're like, oh my gosh, it works. And it's like South Park
They figured it out.
basically figured it out. Well,
Yeah.
you know, they probably didn't figure it out, but they like called it out.
Yeah.
Because that's really from when we started, like when I was young, that's all it was. It was like lots,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like lots of bread, lots of grains. And then, you know, we used to average 23,000 steps a day,
Yeah.
like as humans. And now I think it's
Barely
like
move.
maybe a couple thousand.
Yeah.
a
The average
day.
American goes up a flight of stairs and can't breathe.
Yeah.
I mean, we've some challenges. So I want to talk to you a little bit about fear, because I think we off camera we were, because of the stuff you do. People don't know the stuff you do, but base jumping and winging and all the, you know, I watched a bunch of your videos on YouTube, and it's some of when you're a professional scooter rider, some of those jumps you were doing are insane. I mean, you told me
They're
about
big.
4 stories, 6 stories. You get a visual of that, but to watch it, I mean, and then you're doing flips and
And on camera, it looks small too. In person, it's like,
I saw you walking up to it. It looked, or someone walking up to the,
Yeah.
it's frightening. And, you know, I know that you said you started out as a kid in your backyard, you're riding a skateboard, and that's kind of how it started in Amarillo, Texas. And then it just evolved from that. But fear still is important. I mean, it stops human beings from doing a lot of things that are good for them.
I think it stops you from having fun.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, and but it prevents people from accomplishing things. I mean, so you know, I know you're probably going to tell me it's repetitions. When you've done things, you keep doing them over and over, they get easier. I mean, I get that, but there's still something in your mind when you're getting ready to go down a 6-story drop with a bike. That I mean, what do you?
Well, you can't train for that. That's the thing. Like the only way to train for something like that is you just bomb a big hill, but there's not a ramp at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then a 40-foot gap that you have to stay straight, because if you go left or right, you miss the ramp, and
Okay.
it's not going to end well. Which is, I've seen that happen a couple times, and it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Not good. And you know, those types of things, once you overcome them, then you go to a skate park, everything just feels small, and you're just like, the dopamine just doesn't hit. And then your brain starts thinking, what's next? What's next? What's next? You know, like, how can I get that bite? And so then I feel like that's where I evolved into skydiving and then base jumping and then now climbing and then climb to base jumps and then these like sketchy free solo stuff we're doing in the mountains. And then you jump off, and it's like, that's where it's going. And then, you know, you got to reel it back a little bit, but
Dial it back.
yeah. But really, I think it's just, at the end of the day, got to screw loose is what it is. And it's just been like an evolution of time, you know, like
A screw loose. So we were, again, I just started to discuss this with you off camera, but, and I think you've been exposed to this, but there are some researchers out of the Czech Republic, and they're looking at latent toxoplasmosis in the brains of people that have motorcycle accidents and traffic fatalities. And there's some more studies done in Europe, in Russia, I think, where some of them were done. And basically, specifically in the Czech study, they found that people in traffic fatalities have 2.6 times the level of latent toxoplasmosis. They're finding this in these people. And you may know toxoplasma, it's a single cell organism, and it gets inside the brain of a rat, and it alters their behavior. So then the rat then starts to chase their biggest predator, cats. So rats start to move towards cats, and they have this affinity for cat urine, and they want to be around cats because this toxoplasmosis is in a single-celled organism in their brain, altering their behavior. And because that toxoplasmosis, that parasite, wants to be inside the cat. So it alters the behavior in the rat, makes the rat, go towards cats, have this affinity for cat's urine. So the cat eats the rat, the toxoplasmosis gets inside the cat's brain. So were you around cats when you were a kid?
I had 3 cats.
Okay.
And then some, because my mom
Do
had
you have
this,
toxo? I'm just kidding.
well, probably. I didn't know that's what it was called, but growing up, my mom, like, we lived out in the country.
Okay.
And so there would be the stray cats that would stumble, like, by our front door while it was snowing, and my mom's like, we can't leave them outside. And so then we ended up just getting at one point we had 5 cats, and my dad's
goodness.
like, Shelly, we need to stop. Like, these cats got to go. And then, like, one cat we found on the side of the road got hit by a car, so she lost a leg. Rosie, adorable. She was a fat little
A 3-legged cat.
cat. Yeah,
Got a big heart, man.
oh yeah, big booty too.
So that goes along with it when you only have 3 legs. You
Yeah,
can't
right.
exercise, right?
Right.
That's what happens.
But I was around a lot of cats.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
long story short.
Yeah. Well, I think my story was a little long too, but interesting behavior because it still does take some cojones to jump off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like you said, how do you train for that? I mean, it's And I know that's been an evolution for you. But talking about evolution, tell us a little bit about your new production company and what you're doing. I know you said you were recently out and you're filming people hanging out of planes, doing crazy things. Tell me what's going on. What are you doing?
Um, you know, everything's so like all over the place right now. It's hilarious because it's like I have shoots like that, but then I'm going and filming like this quantum physics client that I have in
He must be
Irvine,
smart.
and then I'm going to like, oh, I'm not smart at
No, the
all.
quantum physics.
Oh yeah, those guys are insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
like when they're talking, I'm
Brilliant.
just like,
Sure.
yes, and then
Not
I'm like,
understanding
I
a
have to look
word
at my
you're
notes
saying.
of what they want to ask. I'm like, what is the nano? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying, and I know they're just
No
looking
one
at me
knows
like,
what they're
this guy's an idiot. Like he doesn't even know what nano nuclear molecular. I don't know, but then it's like I'm doing stuff for Barrett Jackson now pretty consistently, and like helping them with their I guess more like not high end stuff, but they have big collaborations
Okay.
that they do with charities. And so there was one I did with like Mike Rowe, and then Make a Wish,
cool.
History Channel, and then a bunch of other
Okay.
stuff. Shelby, I got to film them like reveal the new GT300R, so that was really cool, and got to like talk with the makers of it and the designers, and then Corvette and all this stuff. So it's kind of just all over the place, but.
And I would disagree about something you just said a minute ago with intelligence.
In the scientific.
Well, there's different types of
way.
intelligence.
Of
There's
course.
also a type of intelligence that I just read about recently called kinesthetic intelligence. You would have that.
Kinesthetic, like athleticism type.
Michael
Okay.
Jordan is incredibly intelligent
I'm a genius.
kinesthetically.
It's whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, there's different types of intelligence, and a lot of mathematicians can't talk to people. I mean, I employ a lot of physicians that I have to coach them on. This is how you talk to a patient, because there some people are really intelligent in some areas and don't know how to even have a regular conversation.
So it's almost like they have the intellectual, but they don't have the emotional.
Yeah, I think that's
what
a
it is.
good way to describe it. I mean, if you think about like the way ACT and the SAT exams were, those are all logic and math. But verbal is important too. In fact, if you think about AI, how important is it going to be great at math in our future economy? I don't know. I mean, it's really AI is going to handle all that. So
Right.
you're going to have to be able to talk to people or jump out of a plane and film somebody in a wingsuit. So the kinesthetic intelligence is important.
I think it's also, because I guess that's true. Like I have like a really strong reaction time. Like me and my girlfriend, who was with me last time, she actually played me in a game, like a card game, like Slapjack. Have you ever played that?
No.
Or it's like so anytime there's a jack that gets laid down, you have to slap it, and then you get that pile, and then whoever runs out of cards first. And she couldn't get a single one.
Because you're
It's
quick.
hilarious. But then we played another game of speed, which is all numbers, right? So it's like if there's a 2, you either need to put an ace or a 3 or a 2 down. And then you're just like racing to try to clear all your cards out. And she kicks my ass.
Process is quicker.
She's like, her process is a lot stronger, and like she's really good at numbers and putting them together.
Yeah.
But mine's like strictly reaction time and like making quick decisions.
Kinesthetic intelligence,
Yeah.
something quicker. So I'm going to hop skitch over here to your injuries.
Sweet.
You've had a lot of fractured bones, my man. A lot of
yeah.
injuries in your and
Character builders is what I like to call them.
make it tough
yeah.
and expensive, and your parents hospital bills. Lots.
I had pretty good insurance.
Yeah, I bet you.
I don't know how.
I bet you do.
But the companies
keep it. Make sure you keep it active.
I know. I try to.
Yeah.
I don't entirely tell them everything I do, but they don't ask.
So you'd mentioned to me fractured clavicle, all your toes and your tibia, your fibula. I mean, you've done it all, man.
Mm-hmm.
So the rehabilitation after that, again, that's kind of something that's fascinating to me, how people recover from those injuries, because you've obviously recovered because you're doing, high functioning athletic skill set today. So, What was your method? Was it, did you see a PT? Did you educate yourself? How did you,
Well, I actually had a lot of issues
okay.
with the recovery forms because the injuries I would have were like injuries that doctors typically don't deal with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I was jumping a massive ramp and I broke my collarbone, and then it's like it's on the tip, and typically they don't see that.
No,
So
that's
then
right.
they deem that as a separated shoulder and then tell me to start doing workouts to fix a separated shoulder, even though they did x-rays on it. And so now I have like this bump in my shoulder
Yeah.
because
Missed it.
they never, yeah, they just completely
Yeah.
missed it. And then same thing happened with when I broke my hand. I broke my arm once. They didn't see it.
You fractured your radius. You're pointing your radius.
Yeah. So when I broke my wrist right here, there's like a little bump.
Mm-hmm.
When I broke this, the doctors asked me, they're like, "Oh, did you break this? Like your radius?" And I was like, "No, my hand hurts. Like
They're asking
I
you.
know what hurts." And like it looked like a bump, and I was like, "Dude, my wrist is like my hand is broken." And they're like, "Oh, no, that's not broken, but like right here, you definitely broke this years ago." And then I thought back, I was like, "Oh, I remember going to the hospital knowing I broke my arm.
The
And
last guy missed that
and the
one.
doctors were like, "Oh, no, you're good." And then my arm hurt for like months and months.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Yeah, just try to exercise it, stretch
Mm-hmm.
it."
Mm-hmm.
And so and then with my tib and fib, the doctor, instead of like just cutting me open and putting a rod in, he
Mm-hmm.
put me in a boot. And so I've re-broke it for 2 weeks every single,
Ultra
like,
conservative.
yeah.
When he could have fixed it with a plate.
yeah. So it's like all my big injuries have lasted longer because every single time the doctors
Did
have
a
misdiagnosed me.
mismanaged.
Every single time. So now I don't go to the doctor anymore.
Yeah. Well, you'll live longer.
Honestly, yeah. Because every time I go to the doctor, they just want to put pills in me. And I'm like, I don't need pills. Like, can you give me an alternative? And they just don't know.
Yeah.
Which, granted, this is, generalizing.
Yeah.
But the doctors I've seen, I know it's off topic, but it's like, that's what I've dealt with. And it's really, really annoying that like doctors can't,
No,
it's almost like they don't know how to deal with like traumatic injuries.
No, you bring up a fascinating concept, and that family practice docs have to deal with, because that's usually typically if you go to the emergency room and you got a fracture, you're going to see an orthopod probably, unless you're in Timbuktu, you're going to see an orthopedic surgeon, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if you go to a family practice doc, and they're brilliant physicians, but they're managing multi-system disease, internal disease. They're looking for zebras that are going to kill you. They're training in human nutrition, how to manage a musculoskeletal injury, how to manage. It is really, I don't want to be disrespectful because they're brilliant, but really not good. It's poor. And so if you have a spine, a shoulder, a knee, and you don't see a sports medicine specialist, or you don't see an orthopod, you don't see an interventional spine specialist, pain specialist like we are. If you don't see a chiropractor who's well trained in that space, you're liable to get this advice. Well, just go home and rest it, and if it hurts, don't do it. That's the worst advice you could get. But we are getting better. The musculoskeletal diagnosis with what we can see with image guidance, with ultrasound units today, with MR. You can see these injuries more real time, especially with in-office high resolution ultrasound, and coach a patient through that process a little bit better. In fact, pain medicine when I say pain medicine, not giving people just pills, but the specialty of pain medicine, which is basically between a chiropractor and a physical therapist and an orthopedic surgeon, is a space that's been a big black hole in taking care of humans, interventional spine or interventional pain. And that specialty wasn't even around until 2000.
Oh.
Think about that. So
it's like really new.
It's new.
Oh.
So there was kind of surgery, or go see the physical therapist, or go see the chiropractor. Well, there's a lot of stuff in between there that should be managed, and that's probably my long-winded story on why I think today, if you see a well-trained interventional specialist, you would have gotten a little bit better healthcare. That's my guess.
Yeah,
that's my bias.
Absolutely.
That's what we do. So I'm biased about it, but
no, that's
anyway.
fair. Well, because it's like, but then it almost taught me to just deal with injuries on my own.
Which is good mentally,
Right.
because you just got through it. You just got on
So
with it.
now whenever, I like hurt my hand climbing, or, I scrape myself up or whatever, or like I fracture something, I just
Mhm.
know how to deal with it. As long as it's
Yeah.
not sticking out of my arm and I'm like completely debilitated,
Yeah.
then I'm going to go, like, if it's that scenario, I'm going to go to
Yeah.
the hospital. But if it's not, I'm just going to deal with it myself.
You
'Cause
get tough when you participate in your game,
Yeah.
man. You get tough.
Well, and also I am not a fan of pain meds. Like
Yeah.
all my big injuries,
Dangerous.
I haven't taken pain meds, because
You-
my theory is that,
They're dangerous.
yeah, and you heal faster if you don't take them.
That I would agree with that. We have an initiative we're using in my clinics for patients with opioid use disorder, and it's profound because we went through that couple decades where there was really big problems with opioids. We didn't, Purdue Pharma was coming in. I can remember 1997, Purdue Pharma coming in the clinic and telling all the physicians, "There's no ceiling to prescribing opioids." So you just give them a little bit more.
So you experienced that
I
firsthand.
was on the front row of that.
Wow.
And we, and so patients would come to us. We try to wean them back a little bit. We'd end up giving them more. And it was a problem. It was called the fifth vital sign, where there are vital signs that a physician looks at. Well, this became known as a fifth vital sign in the late 90s. It was undertreating pain. So we were undertreating pain. So giving patients pain medicine, it took a decade or two for physicians to realize what we were doing, what was happening. It was a big problem. We created a big.
crazy.
So right now, even though a lot of that has been improved, and physicians are a lot smarter with prescribing practices, there's still a big problem with opioid use disorder. Those patients didn't go away. They still have the problem, and so we're big advocates of weaning patients off of those medicines and using a medicine called Suboxone that can help those patients function better. But you're right up my alley. A big passion of mine in my life is making sure patients don't. You don't give them too many pain meds. It's a big problem. And if you can heal without them, fantastic. You don't want to give pain medicine to the wrong patient. They can be dependent in 5 days.
Well, I actually, so I got my wisdom teeth taken out and they gave me Oxy, and I was just like, I'll try one. I got like,
Yeah.
what's it like?
Yeah.
And they are so good.
Oh, the human brain loves opioids.
I was like, holy shit.
See what happens to people.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Yeah.
And then I started taking them a little bit more. And and this is after, I've had like a whole thing of like no pain meds.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen what it does to my friends. I took pain meds as a kid,
Sure.
Tramadol, Hydro, just being a dumb kid and whatever else. And those were like, and then I had this earning. I had like a couple left, and I was like, "Ooh, how can I get more?" And then right when I thought that, I immediately went to the toilet and flushed them. And I was like,
I'm not getting on this train.
Yeah, I was like, I am not going down that road. That's like,
Well, you were thanks for sharing that. You're spot on with your perspective of when you get an injury of just keeping after it. That's pretty good advice a lot of the time. Not always, but
I mean, if
but a
your
lot of
leg
the
is
time.
in half, then you need to not. But
There's even some recent studies on patients with fractures in their lower extremities. And when patients have fractures in their lower extremities, if they get up and move on them quicker, they heal quicker. So the whole idea of, well, we're gonna have you on 6 weeks of bed rest,
and
like
you're gonna ice it.
Gonna be ice is good physiotherapy. I mean, I think it's a good treatment to reduce inflammation without having to take an anti-inflammatory.
Right.
But it isn't gonna fix anything. You're gonna have to get up and move. Movement is the best medicine, right?
Well, because when I broke my tib and fib, after I think it was like 2 weeks, it kept re-breaking over and over again because I was in a freaking boot, not a cast, and it blew my mind that they were like, "All right, yeah, you're gonna get crutches and start walking." I was like, "What?" But it makes sense because that was the best way to start moving, because it's like, your body's gonna start actually adapting.
Yeah.
And honestly, ever since I started doing that, like anytime, because I've been getting like some tendon and ligament
'Cause you're climbing a
stuff
lot.
from climbing,
Yeah.
And when I do, I just haven't done anything about it, and it just goes away.
You just keep after it.
Like I'll scrape it with some scrapers.
Yeah, scrape is great.
And then like I'll stretch my hands and stuff. But
A little bit of manual medicine, a visit or two sometimes will help. A visit or two with a PT or a chiro or a little injection. Yeah. Well, Uh, a consult for a visit or two, meaning
But what is
I'm,
that?
manual medicine. When you'd see a physical therapist or a chiropractor, and they would get in and release a tendon,
Oh, okay.
get in,
Okay.
and if you get, because anytime you overuse a muscle or a ligament, it swells, and when it swells, you don't get good oxygen to the tissue, and when there's a hypoxic state or low oxygen state, you start to develop scars, and so those scars will shorten. Whatever. If you injure your bicep, it will eventually shorten and it will pull on where it's tying into the bones on each end. And so
Right.
then a patient feels a tendonitis, right? The secondary tendonitis. And if you get after it and if you release that, or you get up and you climb and you exercise and you move, that's good medicine, man. That's movement.
Movement is healing.
It is healing for sure.
And it's crazy that that's not a more common thing. Cause yeah, I was told all the time, like,
Rest.
rest,
Terrible,
rest.
terrible advice.
Yeah.
Almost always terrible advice.
Because there's that saying of when you get old, oh my gosh, I forget the actual verbiage, but you'll get what I'm saying is once you become stagnant, you die.
Yeah.
Is basically what it is.
Yeah.
So like once you become bedridden,
Yeah.
it's basically over.
You're toast. I had the pleasure of having a 95-year-old woman on our podcast recently who climbed Kilimanjaro at age 85 and 89, and she climbed at age 89 with a fractured rib, and she is with it. She's with it. But you know what she does every day?
Too.
She lives in my neighborhood. I met her because she's always hiking. I'd see her hiking a mountain. I'm coming down. She's going up. She's going back up. She is constantly moving. I mean, I don't think it's a secret. I think that the jury is out. Movement is really good medicine. I mean, if we, for concussions, getting patients to get back and just walking or light aerobic activity, is really excellent therapy for those patients. And just movement's key.
Oh, an object in motion stays in motion.
Yeah. Well, see, he's not smart. He's quoting Newton's 3 laws of relativity here.
I got a couple brain cells left.
Yeah, you do. He does. He absolutely does.
Because also it's it's fascinating that's not, well, it's probably becoming more common, and I feel like people are awaking to like, oh, this pill isn't actually going to fix me. It's just a Band-Aid on what I have currently.
Mm-hmm.
But if I moved, it would help. And honestly, going out and doing stuff really helped my concussions, which I don't know if I told you last time. I had like these 3 concussions in 1 week.
No. That's dangerous, bud.
Yeah. So I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
So this is when I was competing. This was like 2019, I think 2019, because it was like right when we moved to Arizona.
Okay.
So we were in Havasu, and I had this great idea that I was going to roll backwards down a grass hill. And I was like,
why does this not surprise me?
well, and it was going great. And it was like, it was really cool. And everyone was like, this is wild. I didn't have my helmet on. And I didn't realize there was all these rocks at the bottom, these little pebbles. And I got very lucky of not hitting them, because it would have, hit
worse.
Because I was probably going like 15 miles an hour when I hit.
Oh, goodness.
So if I hit a rock,
oh yeah,
like lights out.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah.
So
that's concussion number 1.
So I hit a water, like a sprinkler head with my back wheel, and just went like straight back, hit my head. And then my buddy Will, that I was telling you about, had a phenomenal idea to try to do what I did, but on one wheel going forward. So it's called a nose manual.
Okay.
So he tries to go into a nose manual. Immediately, it digs into the wet grass. He goes over the handlebars, goes like 15 feet down, or actually probably like 12, like 10, 12 feet, lands straight on his collarbone, breaks his collarbone. And then I have to drive him to the hospital, very concussed. And we get to the hospital, there's no one there. And we're like, and I'm concussed. And I'm like, I don't even know where I am right now. And so we finally find the hospital area, and he's getting taken care of. And I'm kind of like this. And the nurse is like taking care of him, look at his collarbone, taking x-rays. And she looks over at me and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm great.
Not really.
Like, I'm fantastic. And then the next day was the contest, and I was riding in it, and I hit my head really hard during the contest, trying to trick. I like slipped out and hit my head on the concrete. I had a helmet on, but
okay. Still, yeah.
Still gonna rattle your brain.
Of course.
And then that next weekend, I went to a metal concert and I was in the mosh pit and I just got like straight, like side spinning fist straight to the head. And I woke up on the ground getting drug out of the mosh pit. And then after that, I was like, my head was
Whoa.
like on fire,
Oh, my
ringing.
goodness.
And I went outside and I was just like sitting there trying to catch my breath and try to just like recalibrate myself.
Yeah.
And this guy was sitting next to me. I don't remember what he told me, but then that rocked me. And so after that third one, I became like super bipolar. I couldn't form sentences. I couldn't remember much. Like like almost every conversation I would have with someone, I would have to start them over. I'm like, I'm sorry, I forgot what you were talking about. And so I started doing like brain scans and I started taking this pill that's supposed to like, I guess, balance the chemicals in my brain or something.
Okay.
So every month I was going to a neurologist and getting scans. They said everything was fine, but I was like, everything's like not fine because I can't form sentences. I just like get infuriated out of nowhere. And then I'll like get really emotional out of nowhere because my brain's going through all these things.
Sure.
And then that was kind of the moment where I was just like, you know what?
Gonna slow her down a
Let's
bit.
slow her down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I got a couple after that, but nothing that's like getting rocked, like
How did you
stuff.
rehab after? Just like we talked about earlier, just with light activities and yoga and that type of stuff. Is that when you started making that change a bit?
Well, anytime I would ride my scooter, it would like my brain would throb because it's getting tossed around. But it was really doing yoga, stretching, swimming.
Swimming's great for.
And then I was doing a lot of like cold therapy as well. So like the pool,
cold plunges or
like in our backyard pool, I would just go and like swim in it, just kind of sit in it.
Yeah.
And it would give me a lot of mental clarity. And I think that helped a lot. I still have issues from that. And from over the years of hitting my head on the concrete with no helmet. Just
that's what skaters do, right? That happens.
Yeah, it's the cool thing to do.
One of the physicians I work with, he's just brilliant, but he's a skater. He's had so many injuries. I mean, even today, we're having to work on his wrist or his arm or his neck because he's 46 years old.
Yep.
After being a skater.
Oh my gosh, that's where I'm going to be.
Yeah. Well, it's a real pleasure having you, Clayton. I love talking to you and your story, and be exciting to watch and see what you do with your production company.
Thank you.
How would people get a hold of you if they wanted to, if they want Ragtown Production Company? Is that correct?
Yeah, you can go to ragtownmedia.com.
Okay.
You can contact me on Instagram. Pretty easy to find. Just Clayton Lindley. You'll see all my crazy stuff. And then, yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add, man, before we roll off? Any advice for? I know I'm kind of getting this backwards, but any advice for?
Well, I think like something about fear that's really unique. Is everyone deals with fear in some sort of way, and I feel like a lot of people doubt themselves a lot, which is just another form of fear.
It is another form of fear.
And I feel like the more you step out of that comfort zone, the more comfortable you get being uncomfortable. And I think that's like the key to life.
So true.
Is like, don't be afraid to fail.
So true.
And get out of your comfort zone. Whether that's like going to your first Pilates class, you're like, oh, I'm scared. Like everyone's going to be looking at me.
Yeah.
No one gives a fuck what you're doing.
No, nobody does.
Like no one does.
No one cares.
Everyone's worried about themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like anytime I think that, I always look at other people and I'm like, they're so worried about themselves.
So true.
I don't even
So
exist.
So true.
In their mind. Like I'm in the back of the class and I guarantee like some people looked at me a couple of times, maybe thought something, but like for the most part, they're like, are they
preoccupied with their own lives?
Who's looking at me?
Yeah.
Like, am I doing this right? Do I look stupid? Yeah. And so I think that's my biggest advice is
that's great advice.
Don't be a pussy.
That is great advice. And I will tell you, I'm gonna dovetail on that. One of my favorite quotes I tell my sons all the time, and I wish I could live it more in my life, but I tell them all the time. What do 99.9% of people do all day long? Nothing. They think about themselves.
Oh,
they're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. So when you walk into a room, you're right. They're not thinking about you. And I love how you also framed fear. And it doesn't always show up as fear. It just sometimes shows up as self-doubt and a reticence to take a step.
Well, isn't that what fear is anyways? It's self-doubt. No matter how scared you
great
are,
word. Yeah.
it's really because anytime I'm scared, like if I'm on top of a ramp or I'm on a cliff or I'm about to jump out of a plane or about to do a scary climb, it's literally the reason why I'm scared is because I'm doubting myself.
Yeah.
So really at the end of the day, when you're scared,
Self-doubt.
that's all it is.
Yeah.
So
When
if
no
you-
one cares.
Nope.
And no one's going to realize in 60 or 70 years anyway.
Yep.
No one's going to care. Great stuff, man. Thank you so much for coming and sharing that. I hope today's episode helps you stand taller in your own shoes and helps you break through barriers. Thank you.